Hello, hello, hello. Back. I know it's been a while since you all have seen me, and I'm just really excited to be here again. I've got some new things up for you. One of them is I want to spend more time with you. I want to come weekly or bi-weekly. I can't promise you I'm gonna be here every week because I'm really trying to rest more deeply these days. But at least bi-weekly to come and do these live chats with you on the topic of self-loving our way there. Um, what I mean by that is love is the path to our healing. It is the path to our manifestations. It is the path to every one of our transformations. It is the path to our purpose. It is the path to our expansion. And we'll be talking about all of that in these live chats. But today I'm live. I haven't seen you in a while here. And I really want to cover today, I want to talk about a topic that I've been hearing a lot around, just around in the world. And that really is about what self-love really is. And if you know about me by now, you know I had a near-death experience in 2005, and I was told in that experience that the key to healing my body, because at the time I had died because I had been diagnosed with kidney failure and AIDS in the hospital and died in the hospital bed. And had this near-death experience, and source told me in this experience that the key to healing and that to experience a really well life, a really good life, because that's what I really wanted. That was kind of one of the questions that I had asked the universe right before I died, was I wanted to know what it took to really heal my body, and I wanted to know what it took to really live well. And so I received the answer to that in my near-death experience, and the answer was to love yourself. That in order to, the key to true healing and well-being is to embody our soul through the practice of self-love. That's really what it said and that's what source told me in my near-death experience. And so I was told that the key was self-love, the key to well-being, to healing, to living well. But the issue was, I didn't know what self-love was. I didn't really know how to do that. And I was told during my near-death experience that I was going to learn, that I was going to come back into my body, and that the journey after my experience was going to be one of learning self-love, and that I was going to be called to teach what I had learned, that this would be part of my life purpose on the planet, was to teach self-love, to teach what I had learned about self-love and how it can heal and how it can transform, that I was going to teach it. And again, I didn't know anything about it at that time. Like what I knew about self-love before I had gone into my near-death experience was I thought it meant affection and care, right? Affection and care, because that's kind of what in dominant society and culture, that's kind of, especially in the West, what we associate with loving somebody is being affectionate with them and caring for them. And so I thought loving myself meant just being affectionate with myself and caring for myself. And that's partially true. But what I discovered in my journey after my near-death experience was that's incomplete. And that's really why I wanted to come today, because what I see a lot of teachings out there around self-love, because self-love is kind of a hot button topic right now. A lot of people are talking about it, which part of me is really excited about and is like, yes. And then a part of me is a bit frustrated about, because a lot of what's out there being taught is not complete. It's not that it's wrong, but it's just not complete. And so people are not getting the full healing and full transformation from the practice of self-love that they could, because what we're teaching about it is just incomplete. So I wanted to jump on today and talk with you all about what I learned what self-love really means. Like, what does it really mean? And I want to share with you a bit about how I learned that, like what taught me what self-love really is. And in order to understand what self-love is, we really need to understand love. And again, a lot of what we've been associating love with is very mixed. because some of us associate love with affection and care, but affection and care gets construed with what many of us saw in our childhood from our caregivers, from whether our caregivers were our parent or our grandparents or foster care or whatever our caregiving system is. That definition of what affection is gets construed by what they offered to us when we were kids. And a lot of times that could have been associated also with violence. That could have been associated with neglect and deprivation. That could have been associated with overwhelm and exhaustion. And so a lot of us associate love with these aspects, and that's really not what love is. So I wanted to shed some light on that. So in doing that, I want to share with you what I discovered. There's two main things that helped me discover what love is. And I want to share what those two things are and what they taught me about love, and what learning about love taught me about what self-love actually is, like what it really means. But before I do that, I want to share with you what the dictionary says, because I love words and I love the definitions of words, but I want to share with you what the dictionary says. And I have a little dictionary here. So I'm going to read to you what the dictionary says self-love means. The dictionary says, self-love is the love of self. One, it says conceit. And then the other one is regard. And so there's two definitions. The first one was conceit. The second one is regard for one's own happiness or advantage, which I like a whole lot better than that first definition, which was conceit. But that's also still not complete. The regard for one's own happiness and or advantage is in the direction and a part of an aspect or a facet of self-love, but it's still not the fullness of it. So I want to share with you what I learned about love in my near-death experience. So when I crossed over to the other side, there was this feeling of, there were two things that I felt. People ask me a lot, like, what did the other side feel like? Did you meet? There are three questions people ask me a lot when they want to know about my near-death experience. What does the other side feel like? Did you meet God? And a lot of times they ask me, did you see anybody that you knew, that you loved, or that you knew that had died? So the first thing is, the first, like, what it felt like was the first feeling when I began to leave my body and I knew that I was dying. The first feeling was this feeling of absolute oneness. This feeling of, what I mean by oneness is like absolute connection, absolute belonging to everything. It felt like literally everything belonged. So every part of me belonged, every aspect of my being, not just every part of me belonged to the space, but every aspect of existence belonged to me, and I belonged to it, and I was connected to it. Like there was no sense of separation or rejection or othering. It was kind of everything was one. The other part of that, the feeling was, there was this immense feeling. And if you've talked to anybody else who's had a near-death experience, one of the things, the commonality, the common experience that near-death experiencers will talk about is this immense feeling of love. Like this immense, immense feeling of love and of being loved. Now, what does that feel like, right? So to me, what that felt like was this immense feeling of well-being. Like that all of me belonged, that all of me was connected, that everything was okay, that peace and everything was ease, immense freedom, that I was lovable and appreciated and valued and worthy. And there was joy. There was this immense feeling of like high vibration joy. And so that was the energy of love, right? And what I discovered on that side was that was me, that was my essence. That was who I really am. Like all of that energy, that feeling, that was what I was made of. Like that's what we're all made of. And that was the fullness of what my soul is. That is the fullness of my soul. My soul was love. Like not just in a very Disney movie type of way, but a very like real, palpable, truest of the true way. My soul was love. I was made of it. I was made from it, right? And so that was my first kind of understanding that love was like this feeling of all belongs, right? And that it was this feeling of well-being. So when we talk about self-love in this instance, we have to understand that loving ourselves means making all parts of ourselves belong to ourselves. That means that there's nothing rejected about us, that there's nothing that we're shunning away about ourselves. There's nothing we're hiding, there's nothing we're suppressing, there's nothing we're rejecting or denying, that every aspect of us we make it belong, that it all belongs, that we accept it, and that we make it part of ourselves so that it's part of our wholeness, right? The other part is the well-being part, and I'm going to get to this here in a second. So that was what I learned in my near-death experience. I promise you, I'll come back around to the well-being part here, but I need to add it in because the well-being part I understood even more in the second part of my journey, which started after the near-death experience. So after my near-death experience, I began to take a journey into learning how to truly love myself. And one of the things that happened along my journey in the very beginning phase of my healing journey was my intuitive gifts opened. My intuitive or my psychic gifts, whatever you want to call them. I call them my intuitive gifts. They began to open. And one of my abilities that opened was mediumship and channeling. And I began to connect with souls on the other side. I began to channel my guides and have these conversations. And I began to feel this same feeling when I would connect with someone's loved one on the other side, and I would channel my guides, I would begin to feel the same feeling. So people ask me again, like around channeling, what does it feel like to channel your guides? And what does it feel like to connect in with somebody else's loved one who's on the other side, who's passed and is now on the other side? And the feeling is the same, very similar to what I felt when I had my near-death experience. It is this feeling of like, it's a very high vibrational feeling of well-being. It's a very high feeling of love. And that began to inform me a bit, again, further inform me that the soul is love, that spirit is love, that is what we are, right? And the more and more I connected with them, I don't care who they were, I don't care how they lived, what kind of life they lived on earth, whether they were a saint or a quote unquote sinner, whether they were a very loving person or a very hateful person, whether they left this earth and lived a very long life or they lived a very short life, whether they committed suicide or murdered, no matter what their experience was on earth, their soul always felt like love. And the other aspect that taught me this again was when I began to connect in and do intuitive work with people. And one of the parts of my intuitive abilities is when I connect with somebody, I can feel and speak directly to their soul. I feel the soul and I speak directly to the soul. And that helps me give them the highest guidance for whatever issue they're going through, for the solution for that, because it's coming from their soul directly. It's coming from their soul or their spirit team directly. So I go straight to that source. I connect in with that source. And the same has happened here. Like, no matter who they were, no matter how they lived their life, no matter what was going on currently, no matter what they did or didn't do, no matter how good of, quote unquote, good of a person we deem them to be or not be, their soul always felt the same. It was, now they may have had different like personality quirks to it, and that's going to be a whole nother conversation. But they may have had different personality quirks to it, but the energy of their soul always felt the same. And it would feel like these kind of five, a combination of these five things. And this is where I began to learn that love is a consciousness and it's an energy. And the energy of love is multifaceted, meaning that there are several aspects that make it up. So like energy can be made up of several different vibrations that create a certain frequency. So the frequency of love is like, it has a frequency, but that frequency is made up of several different vibrations. And I want to share with you what some of those vibrations are, and what I discovered, like the main vibrations that make up the frequency of love, that make up the energy of love, what those are, and what I discovered those are in my journey. And one of the things that I discovered, again, what informed me the most around this was, again, my intuitive work with other people, connecting directly into their soul and beginning to see, wow, the soul always feels like this, no matter where they are in the world. I work with people all around the world. I work with different colors of people, different races, different countries, different sexualities, different genders, different gender expressions. I've worked across the gamut, and I can tell you, no matter what, the soul always felt like this. And it was these five kind of vibrations that I always felt when I connected in with the soul. And they were worthiness, freedom, safety, ease, or I would say peace, and joy. These were kind of the five core vibrations that made up the frequency of the soul, of the wholest soul, of love. Again, it was worthiness. It felt worthy. It felt like, it felt loved and lovable and valuable and deserving, right? And deserving is kind of a, for lack of a better word, because deserving, the actual word deserving has a connotation of earning, like you earned your deservability. And the soul is beyond earning. The soul is beyond a feeling of having to earn. It just is worthy already. Right? It doesn't need to prove anything. It doesn't need to assert itself, to prove or to add more to itself, to in order to receive. It just is in the energy of receiving. It's good, right? And so I just wanted to clarify that, but that was kind of, for lack of a better word, deserving was the word, but I wanted to clear that part up, because deserving in the consciousness, because that's the definition of actually deserve, is that you did something to deserve, right? You earned the deservability. And worthiness is a bit different from that, because there's no earning involved. There's just a being, a holding of, a feel of an identity of receiving, and value, inherent value that is not attached to any type of action or any type of behavior. It just has inherent value. So there was that. And then freedom, the soul felt free, and it felt safe and secure. and it felt at peace, and it felt like utter joy. That's what it feels like. And so what I began to understand was, because our soul is love, because that is what the soul is. That's what I learned in my near-death experience. That's what I've learned in my mediumship. And that's what I was learning now in my intuitive work. The soul is love itself. So love is made of these 5 vibrations, these core 5 vibrations, that it is worthiness, it is freedom, it is safety, it is peace, it is joy. These are all facets of love. They are aspects of love. So what I mean by facets they're parts of it, or aspects of it, not just parts, but aspects of it. Just like my hand is one whole thing, right? If you can see my hand here, my hand is one whole thing. This is the whole hand. All of this is my hand. My thumb is a facet of my hand. It is not the wholeness of my hand, but it is a facet of my hand, right? My middle finger is a facet of my hand. My palm is a facet of my hand. All of this together is my hand, but all of these facets make up the wholeness of my hand. So this is the type of thing we're talking about with love. Worthiness, freedom, safety, ease, joy are all facets of love frequency. All of them together make up love. That's what love is. So now that we've gotten to what love is, now we can talk about, like, what does it mean to love ourselves? Well, loving ourselves is the practice of embodying our soul, embodying the love energy that we are. It is the practice of offering thoughts, making choices, eliciting behaviors that allow us to embody, meaning that in our minds, we can, not just in our minds, but in our whole body, in our energy system, in our own body's energy system. I had to go around to get there. In our whole body's energy system, that we feel love. That as we move through our day, we are moving inside of the energy of love. And as we operate through our day, we operate inside of the energy of love. That is what loving ourselves is about. It is about helping us embody the love that we are. And we do that by making choices, thinking thoughts, and eliciting behaviors that allow us to embody the energy of our soul. That's what I discovered loving ourselves really is. And so when we go back to the 5 facets of love, then what that means is, can I embody worthiness? Can I take actions? Can I make choices? Can I choose thoughts and think thoughts and hold beliefs that help me feel worthy? That help me feel worthy. Can I embody freedom? Can I choose thoughts, make choices for myself, and elicit behaviors that allow me to feel free versus feeling trapped, feeling in bondage, right? When going back to worthiness versus choosing thoughts, making choices, and eliciting behaviors that make me feel unworthy, that make me feel not enough, that make me feel unlovable, right? Safe. Can I choose thoughts, elicit behaviors, make choices that make me feel safe? That's love. That's self-love. Ease, same thing. Joy, same thing. Can I think thoughts, make choices for myself, and elicit behaviors that can help me feel joy instead of that take joy away from me? This is what love is. because this is what loving ourselves is. Because when we do this, we are embodying the energy of our soul. But when we're not, we are disconnecting the energy of our soul from our body. And that is not benign. That has disastrous results on our lives and on our bodies. One, on our bodies, because our bodies were literally created to house the energy of our soul. That is literally what our body is here for. It is here to house the energy of our unique soul. When we're not loving ourselves, our body cannot house the energy because we are disconnecting the energy of our soul from it. And it needs the energy of our soul inside of it in order to be healthy and in order to function at its best. So when it's disconnected for too long, that's when it begins to get sick. That's what I learned in my journey, and I was shown a little bit of in my near-death experience of why I was sick and why I was dying, because I had lived a life for so long of not loving myself, which had disconnected me from the energy of my soul, and my body just couldn't handle that anymore. The other thing is the energy of the soul allows us to live in a very high vibration, because our soul is a high vibration. So it allows us to live at a very high vibration, and our lives function well. Everything begins to function well when we're in high vibration. When we're at very low vibration, when we don't have enough energy of our soul inside of us, we're going to be very low frequency. And when that happens, things cannot function. They don't and can't function well in our lives. We can't attract our good. We won't have good relationships. We won't have a good relationship with money. We won't have, our dreams won't be able to be fulfilled. All of this, because that all rides on our ability to embody the energy of our soul consistently. So the only thing that does that is the practice of self-love. The only thing that allows us to do that is the practice of self-love. So that's what self-love is. And this is why, if you've heard me say over the years, if you've been following me for that long, if you haven't, you probably heard me say this recently as well. But if you've heard me say this over the year, this is why it's not about drinking green juice. It's not about burning sage. It's not about getting massages. It's not about buying yourself that nice outfit that you see at the mall. It's not about taking that vacation. Although those things can sometimes be in service to self-love, self-love is more than that. And a lot of times those things we're doing because we're so disconnected from our soul, right? In the first place. The real acts of self-love is about what are you doing that helps you embody the energy of your soul, which is love, the energy of worthiness, the energy of freedom, the energy of safety, the energy of ease, the energy of joy. What are you doing to help you embody those vibrations? What are you doing to feel more like that? What are you doing to feel more worthy, to feel more free, to feel more safe, to feel more ease, and to feel more joy? What are you thinking in order to do those things? What are you choosing for yourself? And how are you behaving? How are you creating a lifestyle, and what actions are you taking around you that will support that? Will support those feelings in you and nourish those feelings so that they expand. That is what self-love really is. It is about embodying the love energy that we are and making choices for ourselves and eliciting behaviors for ourselves and thinking thoughts that will allow us to embody this energy. That's what it is. So that's why it's way more than just affection and care. Yes, affection and care will usually help you feel worthy. And the care may also help you feel at peace. But what are you doing to embody and enhance your feeling of freedom? What are you doing? What are you thinking? What are you choosing? How are you living to enhance and embody a feeling of joy and worthiness and safety. This is an aspect of self-love. This is why things like trust are acts of self-love, because the more you trust, the more at peace you feel and the more safe you feel in the world. It helps you feel that. So that's why trust is an act of self-love, right? This is why things like setting boundaries, a lot of times healthy boundaries, not walls, by the way, but boundaries. There is a difference. Healthy boundaries is an act of self-love, because healthy boundaries help you feel more at peace in your relationships. They also help you receive what you need to feel loved, which helps you feel a sense of joy in a relationship. So that's an act of self-love. So there are many acts of self-love, which we'll be discussing in these conversations. But before I laid the groundwork for those, I wanted to lay the ground for us to understand what self-love really is. It is the practice we take daily to embody the energy of our soul. Last thing before I get out of here, it's a daily practice. It is an ongoing practice, because there will be situations that arise that will challenge you, will challenge your embodiment, will challenge your ability to embody the energy of your soul. If it was something we could choose, I wish it was something we just once and it's done, right? And we always embody the energy throughout the entirety of our lives. But that's not how this dimension in this world is set up. Every day, there are going to be some type of challenge to your embodiment, and self-love is the practice that allows you to move through that challenge and still hold your embodiment, and still hold the energy of love within you, and still operate in the world as the energy of love that you are, instead of being disconnected from it. So I hope this has shed some light on it. I'd love to hear what your ahas were. Leave me a comment under this video, or if you're listening to this podcast later, please leave me a comment review and let me know what your ahas were from this concept, and how different this was from maybe what you've heard before, what you were learning before. Loving ourselves really is the key to life, because our soul is the key to life. Our soul is source. It is the source of life. And so when we embody our soul, we are connected to well-being and to the source of life. When we don't, we're not. And so we can't experience well-being. Well-being only comes through embodiment. And embodiment only comes through self-love. That's it for this time. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I love you. Now go love yourself. Bye.